Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to do the 8th and final Winter 2014-2015 roundup video today. We've been looking at various things through the autumn, started at the start of September, such as solar activity, Siberian Russian snow cover, sea surf temperature anomalies, El Nino. We've been monitoring how things have been progressing through the course of the autumn, and we've got to the final update now, the 8th one, because next Sunday, the 30th of November, we're doing the final season roundup video, and then the day after that, Monday the 1st of December. We've run out of time, so we can't do any more updates, so we've got to come up with the final and official forecast then on the 1st of December. So this is going to be the last update. Before I get on with that, though, just want to talk about the ads. Now there's links to articles sitting underneath the web video here on the homepage at gadswebvideos.com. Have a browse through widget. If there's any articles that you're interested in, just click through and you'll be able to go off and read those articles. There's green keyword ads on some of the pages. If you right cursor over green keywords, will display ads. If you click through words, you go to advertise website. Be supporting gadswebvideos.com by GMAT as well. There's an ad unit down here, discuss comment box. They're contextual ads, so it should be weather related. If you don't think you're interested there, just click through. And Gav Shop is open, so if you want to do any Christmas shopping at Amazon between now and Christmas, click through the banners in Gav's Shop. It'll take you off to Amazon, and from there you can do your Christmas shopping as normal. But at the same time, because you've gone from Gav's Service to Amazon, we will get a royalty on things that you're purchasing, and everyone will be a winner with that one. These things are essentially helping to pay for the website, so thanks so much for getting involved. Thanks for doing that. It's going to be quite a long video, this one, so if you can't watch it all in one sitting, don't worry, it'll be kept around the website indefinitely. You're probably going to need a comfy chair, cup of tea and a biscuit. That's what I'd advise. We're going to be here for quite a while, hopefully not quite as long as last week's video, which was a record, went over 33 minutes, can you believe? I'll try and keep it a little bit shorter than that for this one. So for this final update, I want to start off with the OPI, the October Pattern Index. We looked at this a lot through October, you'll remember, and into the start of, through October into the start of November as well. The OPI is essentially a reflection of how quickly the snow cover is building up across Russia and how much block you've got over the Arctic. We've got a lot of blocking over the Arctic. It tends to build up snow cover quick across Russia, and that translates back into the charts of a cold average winter through an increased risk of blocking. Now, we came out with a very negative number for October 2014's pattern index. It was the second most negative in the index, only beaten by 2009. The team is based in Italy. One of the members of the team, I believe, is Professor Judah Cohen, and Professor Cohen has actually created a forecast based on this methodology, or based certainly on snow cover across Russia. And this is the temperature forecast that Professor Cohen is going for the Northern Hemisphere. We see about a very cold winter is being predicted here for many parts of America away from the western side, and look how cold the winter is being predicted for most of Europe as well. Now, for us, as ever, we're on the periphery of the cold, because we've got the warm ocean out there, we've got the cold landmass over there, so we're on the periphery of the cold. Nevertheless, a cold average is being predicted for most of England and Wales, anyway, a little bit nearer north of Scotland. But I think with the continent so cold, we would certainly be getting some cold incursions at times. A warm winter being predicted, interestingly, for southeast parts of Europe, Italy, down into the southeast of Europe. That's where the warm temperature anomalies are predicted to be this winter. As I always say, the Earth is looking for an equilibrium, so when you get one side, which in this case is the north and the northwest, when you get one side that's cold, the south and the southeast tends to be warm. It can't be the other way round. When it's milder up here, it tends to be colder down here. But anyway, most of Europe being predicted by Professor Cohen to have a colder than average winter. That's based on how quickly the snow cover built up across October, I do believe. It looks very similar to what Hugues van der Doorn has been predicting throughout the autumn. We've been monitoring Hugues' predictions, and that'll be showing up in next week's Season 1 Roundup video. We've been monitoring Hugues' predictions, and it looks very similar to that, actually. I thought you'd find that interesting to start off with that. Right, let's have a look at the oceans. We're going to start off with the Pacific. We're specifically interested in the equatorial Pacific, from Peru over here to Indonesia over here. We're looking for warm water, and we've got the warm water coming up through the equatorial part of the Pacific. That's the signature for El Nino. If you have a look and see what the situation was last week, when I did the 7th update, that was the situation then. If we go through and have a look at the situation now, I think you can clearly see that warming has taken place, particularly through this central part of the Equatorial Pacific. Again, go back to last week, go forward to now, warming has definitely occurred through this central part of the Equatorial Pacific. The SOI looks okay, because we've got the cold water around Darwin, the warm water around Tahiti. When you've got that, you've basically got high pressure across northern Australia and low pressure around Tahiti. And when you get that atmospheric setup, it's telling you that the atmosphere is coupling up with the oceans to provide this warming and allow it to occur across the equatorial part of the Central Pacific. So El Nino is on its way. I think El Nino is here, actually. I think we're more or less there now. Whether it's ever designated is another point, because it has to be above 0.5 degrees above average through this central part of the equatorial Pacific over 5 tri-monthly periods. So whether it's ever designated, I don't know, but I think El Nino is pretty much with us now, and the atmosphere, I think, is more or less responding now, more or less in an atmospheric type El Nino setup. Now we go further north into the Pacific, we can see that off the Pacific coast of Canada and America and around Alaska as well, it's still pretty warm there. This cold water is trying to infiltrate through from the central part of the Northern Pacific, but this warm water is holding it off. It's holding it off quite well, so I think this is certainly going to be with us through the first half of winter. Eventually this cold water will probably invade, because this is normally a very cold part of the ocean. So I think this cold water will eventually get in, but it's taking a long time, and for much of this winter I would suspect this warm water will hold on this Pacific coast of Canada and North America. When you've got warm water there, it tends to promote a ridge around Alaska and the Pacific side of Canada and America. Correspondingly, you tend to get a trough around the northern eastern coast of America, and that can allow that cold air to punch down from the north. And that's exactly what we've seen, actually, interestingly, through the past week across America. It's been a very cold week for the north and the east, warmer out to west where we've got the ridge in. And, well, this could go on for some time, actually. It's also something that tends to go with this central-based El Nino. So, yeah, this could be the pattern, certainly for the first part of the winter, that we see repeating quite a bit. In terms of the Atlantic, we don't have a tripole. We've got this cold water in the central part of the Atlantic, but we need more warm water through the tropical Atlantic and more warm water to the south of Greenland, really. Nevertheless, we aren't all that far from a tripole there, so this could evolve, by the latter stage of winter, could evolve into a tripole. And what we're looking for with a tripole is a warm, cold and warm band through the Atlantic. Warm there, cold there, warm there. When you get that, it tends to go together with a negative North Atlantic oscillation, so you tend to get low pressure around the Azores and high pressure up around Iceland. But I think we're going to be starting the winter probably with the Atlantic Ocean itself, sort of fairly well set up for neutral to positive type NAO conditions, but that doesn't mean you can't get a negative NAO even when the Atlantic is set up. You get lots and lots of blocking forming to the north. It can sort of force the issue, if you like, and yeah, you can still get a negative NAO even when the Atlantic Ocean anomalies aren't really all that well set up for it. Now, over the last couple of updates, I've had some very useful charts supplied to me by my good friend Stuart Markham. I know you'll be watching, Stuart. Thanks very much for all the help you give me over the past couple of updates in particular. I couldn't have done the past couple of updates or this one without your help. So thanks so much for supplying me with your charts. If you don't follow Stuart on Twitter, please do follow him. He's at WeatherStew. Please do follow Stuart. He's got a lot of very interesting charts that he shows, and really good Twitter user to be following. We also had updates from Assad. Assad sent me some very useful information at the start of these updates, start of September. So Assad, I know you'll be watching. Thanks very much for that. And also James Akram, my good friend James, has given me some charts that you're going to see at the end of this video as well. So again, James, thanks so much for all your help. If you ever want to send me any charts, just going off on a bit of a tangent, if you ever want to send me any charts or information, please do. It's gavsworthies@gmail.com, and you never know, you may see your information being featured in some of the videos. Now, what Stuart has sent me for this update is a couple of sea surface temperature anomalies. We've got 76, 77 and 2009, 2010. These were coming out in last week's updates as very close analogues to the situation that we could have, or the situation that's been developing through the course of this autumn. We'll start with 76, 77 sea surface temperature anomalies first, and quite interesting for the Pacific setup, very similar to what we've got now. We've got the weak central based El Nino here in the equatorial Pacific. We've got this warm tongue of water going up the Pacific coast of North America and Canada, heading up to Alaska, and it's colder in the central and western part of the Pacific, going over towards Japan. If we have a look at the situation right now in terms of the Pacific setup, it's a very close sort of match there. I think you'll agree to the chart that Stuart has sent over to me. That's the situation from the winter of 76-77. Now for us it's a little bit different. The Atlantic is not similar to the situation that was going on then to now. So it's a lot colder in the Atlantic for the winter of 76-77. It's not surprising because we was in a cold Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation type situation back then. So the Atlantic was colder, but the Pacific setup very similar to what we've got now. And anybody in America will probably find that really quite alarming, because the winter of 76-77 was a very extremely cold winter indeed for many parts of America, particularly in the north and the east, just about the coldest winter there on record. So to be running so close in terms of the Pacific setup to 76-77 is probably very alarming for the folks in America. But for us, actually, it's a little bit different this year compared to 76-77 in terms of the Atlantic setup. Now, a more modern and perhaps more realistic type setup compared to what we've got now was the winter of 2009-2010. So this is the sea surface temperature anomaly for the winter of 2009-2010. There's differences in the Pacific. We can see we've got a much stronger El Nino in 2009-2010, whilst the El Nino that we've got this year might pick up a little bit from where it is right now. I don't think it will get as strong as this. So it was a stronger El Nino, and the Pacific setup, the North Pacific setup, was different as well. It's colder over here towards that coast of America and Canada. It's warmer over here, over towards Japan. So really, the Northern Pacific is completely different to what we've got going on right now. Also, we have got a nice tripole as well through winter of 2009-2010. We've got the warm, cold and warm bands there through the Atlantic. Everything about that anomaly is screaming a colder than average winter. You've got the central based El Nino, you've got the cold water here in the Northern Pacific fighting against the El Nino, so a cold PDO fighting against an El Nino. You've got an Atlantic tripole. It's all going on, and it's not surprising at all looking at that sea surface temperature anomaly that Stuart sent through to us. That winter of 2009-2010 was a cold winter. Things are much more complicated and not as clear cut as that anomaly for this winter. Unfortunately, it would make my job easy. If I saw that anomaly this year, I would almost certainly be predicting colder than average winter, but it is more complicated for this winter. SOI, as I say, things are going okay with that. If we go back and have a look at the SOI, and here we are with the sea surface temperature anomaly. We've got the cold water in the north of Australia, we've got the warm water around Tahiti, so we've got low pressure around Tahiti, high pressure to the north of Australia. When you get that, you're getting a negative SOI, Southern Oscillation Index. Remember, all these indexes, SOI, NAO, AO, they're really just reflections of the atmospheric setup. So when the SOI is negative, for instance here on the 15th of November, minus 10.69, or here minus 7.26, that's telling us that the atmosphere and the oceans are essentially coupling up to help produce the El Nino. Now, we're trading numbers a little bit. Some days are going weekly positive with the numbers, but generally there's enough there to be allowing that El Nino to be bedding in. I think the El Nino is bedding in now. Yeah, I think we basically got a very weak El Nino for this winter. I don't think it's going to get to moderate. It certainly won't get to strong. A weak central based El Nino looks like what we're going to have for this winter. Having a look at Atlantic hurricane activity next. It's been a very weak hurricane season. We've only had 6 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes, so it's been a very weak season. A little bit more active than last season, but nevertheless not much going on. We've got a lot of hurricanes dumping heat from the tropics into the pole. It can translate that later on to an increased risk of blocking. So the fact that we haven't had all that much in the way of hurricane activity could go against the risk of blocking a little bit for this winter. We're in the ECQBO. I spoke about this at length last week, so I don't want to dwell on this too much. We're in the ECQBO. When the QBO is negative, it can coincide with colder than average winters, but there are also ECQBO winters, but a milder than average winter. So we looked last week with the analogues at the winters that are ECQBOs and excuse me, winters that are easterly QBOs, and when you get a lot of build-up of snow cover across Russia, those are winters that seem to correspond with colder than average winters for us. So I don't want to dwell on that too much. If you want to know more about the QBO and what its impacts can be, do check out the seventh update from last week. Siberian and Russian snow cover next. We can see that snow cover has extended now through most of Russia. If we have a look at the situation last week, the snow cover was pushed back away from the west of Russia, go through to now, and there's very clearly been expansion in the snow cover into west of Russia. Actually, it's got into the far east of Europe as well. Much of Scandinavia, certainly northern and central Scandinavia, is covered. This isn't terribly impactful now, to be honest. It's really October that's important with this, see how quickly the snow cover extends across Russia. This is really about where we should be by the end of November. You would expect most of Russia to be covered, and that is more or less what we've got. It's good to see it, though, that the snow cover has pretty much pushed through most of Russia now. If we move through to solar activity next, this is where we're going to end the video with solar activity. This is the solar disk on our side of the disk today from solarham.net. We can see that we have got a few sunspots there, but officially solar activity is low today. The chart from NASA has been updated. You remember last week I showed you the chart from NOAA, NOAA, which showed that in September we had a peak in activity, a bit of a peak in solar activity, whereas in October we got a drop down. Well, now the NASA chart has caught up. This takes us to the end of October, and yeah, you can see that we did get that plunge down, just confirming really what we saw last week. We did get that plunge down in activity from September to October. Solar maximum is just here. It occurred at the start of 2014. So we're coming off the solar maximum. We're going to continue to get spikes in activity over the next year or two as we gradually slide down into solar minimum, which is just there. Now, as I said, James Atquill, my good friend James, has sent me some very interesting solar-related charts, and this is where we're going to end the video with James's data. This is going right up to where we are now, this chart that you're looking at here. So we're interested in this this red line over on the far right-hand side as you're looking at it. Now, that just there is the peak in activity that we got in September. That just there is the drop-down in solar activity, sunspot activity, that we got in October. But James has managed to plot things through to the 18th of November. We can see that for where we go to the end of this chart on the 18th of November, we actually get another spike upwards. So we go a little bit above where we was in September, and that's just confirming what I've been speaking about, really, about coming off the solar maximum, which is just here on this chart. Coming off the solar maximum, we are going to continue to get further spikes in activity as we gradually trend downwards in towards the solar minimum. Now, when you're getting spikes in activity, I've explained this before, when you get these spikes in activity, you're sort of niggling the jet stream. So this isn't a great time to be getting a lot of Arctic blocking. The best time to get Arctic blocking for us, it's not the case for America, it's not the case for Asia, it's for Europe, and the reasons aren't understood all that well. But the best time to get Arctic blocking for Europe is definitely, or seems to definitely be, around solar minimum, or coming off the solar minimum, 2 or 3 years after solar minimum. Those are the best time, but just this period what we're in now, coming off the solar maximum, isn't a great time. But the caveat, of course, is that this solar cycle 24, is much, much weaker than the last solar cycle, and this is the last solar cycle 23. So even though we're getting spikes upwards, you can't rule out a cold winter. For instance, just here, we're in 2012, 2013, just here, we're getting spikes upwards and drops downwards. And we got a cold winter in 2012, 2013, of course. So we may well drop down through December, January and February, or we may get a few more spikes upwards. It's difficult to say quite what will happen. I don't think we'll get back to where he was at the start of 2014, but just because we're getting spikes upwards, although it is going against the chance of blocking on our side of the pole somewhat, we can't rule out totally the chance of a cold winter from that. Now, something else James has done is plotted this solar cycle 24, with some past solar cycles, cycle 5, cycle 12 and cycle 16. It appears that solar cycle 24, this current one, which is this orange line just here, is running very closely to solar cycle 12. And solar cycle 12 is the dashed green line just here. We're running very closely to solar cycle 12. Solar cycle 12 goes from the year 1878 through to, I believe, 1890. That's when solar cycle 12 ended. And as I say, it looks like we're running very closely on this graph with solar cycle 24 to solar cycle 12. So to end up with, what James has done is to have a look at the winter central England temperature anomalies from solar cycle 12 and compared it to solar cycle 24. We start with the first solar cycle, the first winter of both solar cycles just here. The deep blue colour is solar cycle 12, the lighter blue colour is solar cycle 24. This is the first winter for solar cycle 24. This winter is 2007, 2008, I believe. And yeah, we can see from that we are definitely getting a mild winter on both of those winters, there at the start of the solar cycle 12 and solar cycle 24. Now we go to the second winter of those two solar cycles, and both are going cold, very cold for solar cycle 12. That's the winter of 1878 to 1879, extraordinarily cold winter. And one day I'm going to do a historic video looking at that winter, because it really was amazingly cold. We have got charts from that from the historic archive at wetcentral.d. So that was a really cold winter. 2008, 2009 wasn't as cold for the second winter of solar cycle 24, but it switches around a little bit for the third winter. The third winter here is a little bit colder actually there for solar cycle 24. That's 2009, 2010. It's a little bit colder than the third winter of solar cycle 12. The next winter is 2009-2010, just there, and again, cold winter for both the fourth winters of solar cycle 24. Then we get to the fifth winter, and this is very interesting because on both of the solar cycles we go mild. So the fifth winter of solar cycle 12 goes milder than average. The fifth winter of solar cycle 24 goes milder than average as well. So look at that. We've got the first winter on both the solar cycles mild, the fifth winter on both the solar cycles mild. The winters in between are all cold. We go through to the sixth winter and we get a deviation. This is a little bit of a deviation between the two cycles. For solar cycle 12, it's a milder than average winter. For solar cycle 24, it's a cold than average winter. That's winter of 2012. 2013, but remember, it didn't get all that cold until late on in winter. It's really right at the end of winter, inside of spring, that thing got very, very cold. But certainly there is a deviation there with the sixth winter of those two solar cycles. The seventh winter of the solar cycles are coming out mild, and actually, unbelievably, the seventh winter of solar cycle 12 was a little bit milder than the seventh winter of solar cycle 24. The seventh winter of solar cycle 24, of course, is last winter, 2013-2014. Can you believe? But actually, all the way back in the 1880s, we had a milder winter than the winter of 2013-2014. Now that brings us up to this winter. This is the 8th winter of Solar Cycle 24, and it was the 8th winter of Solar Cycle 12. And what happened with that 8th winter of Solar Cycle 12 is that it was ever so slightly milder than average. Nowhere near as mild as the previous winter, but yeah, it was a little bit milder than average. So if we was to continue following this trend, and overall, except for the 6th winter, I think we have followed very closely with these winter Central England temperatures, temperature anomalies to Solar Cycle 12. We have followed it very closely. If we was continuing to do so for this winter, we would have a slightly milder than average winter, albeit significantly colder, of course, than last winter. And interestingly, as we go beyond that, then the winters get colder again. So the 9th, 10th and 11th winters that Solar Cycle 12 were all significantly colder than average. Then the 12th and 13th winters go closer to normal, although certainly not mild, and then the final winter of Solar Cycle 12 goes really, really cold once again. So if this is right, if these central temperatures for the winters continue to run closely to Solar Cycle 12, as I think you can see that so far they have done, except, as I say, for the 6th winter of the both solar cycles. If we continue to run closely, it tells us that really we've passed the mildest part of this particular cycle, Solar Cycle 24, in terms of the winter central temperatures, and we're very likely to see things going colder over the next 2 or 3 winters. But for this winter, we probably come out ever so slightly above average, albeit significantly colder than last winter. Hope you found that interesting. I thought that was very interesting stuff that James sent through to me. Thanks so much to James for doing that. I say thanks to Stuart as well, and to Hassan. I couldn't have done these videos without the information that you've supplied me with. So thanks so much for doing that. And that's it. That's the final update. We've done 8 updates. Looked at so many things, talked for so many hours, probably, once you add it all together, and there we are, we're at the end. So I hope you found all the updates interesting and informative. Thanks so much for watching through the course of the autumn. Next week, as I say, next Sunday, we are doing the final Season 1 Roundup video, and then the day after, Monday the 1st of December, I will be doing the GasWeatherViz 2014-2015 forecast. Thanks so much for sticking with me, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching.